Welcome, and thank you all for joining our webinar. My name is David Flaherty. I'm the CEO of Magellan Strategies. Also helping us behind the curtain today is Craig Haverback. He will be helping out with questions and so forth. This webinar is going to last, or the presentation will last about 20 minutes. And then after that, we're happy to take questions. So let's get started. Okay, who are we? Just first and foremost, we're a public opinion research firm based in Louisville, Colorado. We've been in business since 2007, and we've conducted many a survey over the years for local governments, school districts, special districts, and public policy organizations. Most of our work is ballot measure surveys, as well as community surveys or policy surveys. We're proud members of local government organizations and school district organizations. So those of you that do work in local government, thank you. That's why we attend conferences regularly to learn from you about what are the things that are on your mind and how we can help serve you better. So all local government folks that are on today, thank you for doing what you do. Who have we worked for? We're not new to the community survey space or working in the public sector, if you will. We've helped a lot of organizations over our years with ballot measure surveys and community surveys. So feel free to talk to your colleagues about us. We may have helped somebody that you know with a project in the last 15 years. Okay, let's get to it and talk about the importance of a community survey. For those of you that work for a local government, and many of you that are on here today know that the community survey and the way we view it here in Magellan is it's really the most important public communication that you can receive from your local government. We believe that the community survey, more than any communication, with the exception of emergencies such as COVID, and vaccination policies, it's the one time of the year where people will sit down, give their local government their opinions, and respond to a survey. So we really believe, and it's really important, that the community survey that's coming to their doorstep or their phone or however they may be engaged is incredibly important. So let's make a really good impression. And today I'm going to talk about how technology can really, hit it out of the park on that. Second thing about a community survey that we really encourage our local government friends is to use that opportunity to educate and inform your residents of the challenges that you're facing in local government. Don't just make it all about this service, this service, this service. Take the time to say, hey, with the rising cost of living, we've had some challenges hiring enough staff to adequately manage our service forte, if you will, whether it be your park and recreations division, whether it be your public works, whether it may be snowplow. It's really an opportunity to bring the community in and let them know, hey, these are the things that we're really, addressing and trying to work towards. And we're facing some challenges. So it's a two-way street. And we really believe too many community surveys out there perhaps are just too much about, how would you rate, the level of service for this product or this service, et cetera, et cetera. It's an opportunity to tell your story about what's going on. And finally, it's the one time of the year that you have the full attention of your residents to, really, they're going to give you more than 5 minutes to listen and learn about what's going on. So that community survey, let's make that experience as pleasant as possible. And what I mean by that, making the experience of filling out and that respondent providing their opinions back to the community, to the local government, as best as possible. Okay, I'm going to talk about the differences between mail survey data collection and MMS text survey data collection. Like I mentioned, the title of this webinar is A Better Community Survey. And using technology to increase respondent engagement. So everything I'm going to talk about in these next 20 minutes is going to touch on that. Okay, first and foremost, for many of you veterans out there, you know that many firms engage or suggest that a mail survey, a paper survey, sending one to a randomly selected number of your households is the way to go. Statistically, yes, that may very well hold up, but that's, really the backbone of what I see in a lot of local governments of all sizes, whether it's less than 5,000 adult population or a couple of 100,000. And then the other option that we suggest strongly is MMS text data collection. And the difference between the two is that you can send an MMS text survey invitation, as we refer to them, to tens of thousands of households. A quality, excellent survey gives the population you're attempting to interview many ways to participate in the survey. And I would just, comparing these two, I really want to talk about this because in our years that we've really been pushing MMS text, people are like, well, mail survey is the only way to go. We beg to differ here, and I'm just trying to open people's eyes here a little bit. Okay, I know. All right, a lot of numbers. What am I looking at? On the left-hand side, under the red table, is MMS text survey. And on the left-hand column, we have a list of several communities, cities and counties and towns, excuse me, not counties, but cities and towns in Colorado with their population. An MMS text survey is basically us sending a text invitation to anybody that we have a cell phone for. Now, our sample file that we use when we conduct a survey is combining the voter file, the list of registered voters, along with the residential address file. And this is just the basic numbers. And on the Colorado voter file, just so you know, in the city of Aurora, there's 93,000 unique cell phone numbers. And we, by law, are permitted to send an MMS text, a text with an image, I'll get to that in a little bit, to those folks, inviting them to participate in this survey. The city of Aurora recently did one of their past mail surveys, and they only, and I say only because the difference is really sort of demonstrated here, only 4,000 households were selected. And what I mean by that is they're the ones that are going to get the double postcard, then the actual mail survey sent to them. You're one of the lucky few that have been selected. We really like to listen and learn from you. And they need to read both postcards. They need to open up their envelopes and then start filling it out, you know, with pen and paper, etc. That's what is the coverage of that effort to give people an opportunity to participate? It's 3%. Where if I was going to send an MMS text to 93,000 residents, not once, but at least 3 or 4 times, just do the math on that. We're talking about a better community survey, and using technology, clearly, let your people in, for the love of God. Give them an opportunity to participate. That's what really matters. And it's a stronger and better communication when the more residents in your community that receive an invitation, the more likely they're going to have a better and positive opinion of their local government because their voices are being heard. Now, moving on, as you can see, that's for very large communities. But for medium-sized and smaller size, look, like city of Louisville, right up the road where I am in Broomfield, 2,500 household survey. Well, that's going to 30% of the population. So at least your coverage is higher or better. But for the most part, you know, you could still do a cell phone match. And I'd like to say I'm not limited to just 30%. I can also append thousands and thousands of cell phone numbers to our voter file. And so that typically when we do a community survey, we have cell phone coverage of approximately 50% of the adult population. And we're going to text those people that often. So that's, again, the purpose of this, using technology to increase respondent engagement. And that's, I know it's a little dense. I know there's a lot of numbers, but that's just one way of looking at it. Okay, let's talk about barriers to resident engagement in a community survey with the mail data collection effort. And I know this is kind of busy. I know you may not be able to see it, but these are the invitation letters that got sent to those lucky households that were randomly selected, inviting them to participate in the survey. Most of these folks either got one or two or several emails, postcards before saying like, hey, you've been selected. So you're counting on people reading those paper postcards and then opening up the mail and, you know, in a timely manner being like, okay, here we go. We feel that there are multiple barriers with that approach to get somebody to engage in your community survey. And this is one that's unique from the city of Lakewood. I really find this unfortunate, but in order to get, this is what they're saying to the residents in this letter. In order to get a scientifically reliable sample of Lakewood residents, please have the adult household member 18 years or older who most recently had a birthday complete the survey. This will ensure that we get a good responses for both male and females in a wide range of age groups. So basically, you're telling a husband and wife in your community, sorry, only one of you can participate per household. We don't want to hear from both your husband and your wife. Just an observation, folks, where on an MMS text data collection, we have both cell phone numbers of both the husband and wife and any adult residents in the household. We want to know everybody's opinion. None of this should be guardrailed or sort of cordoned off. And so these are barriers to engagement. So what are the barriers of engagement for an MMS text survey invitation? Here's some examples for you. City of Glenwood Springs, Town of Wellington, Town of Monument, okay? You don't have to worry about whether or not they looked at their mail that day. You don't have to worry about if they opened it up. And if you're a normal human being in this day and age, you're going to look at your survey, your phone when you get a text, especially one that has a big image on it that is from your local government. It is professional looking. It's a friendly, inviting message. Hello, Wellington residents. We invite you to participate in an important community survey about our local issues, town services, and programs. Make your voice heard by sharing your thoughts and opinions. This is much more likely to have somebody be like, oh, interesting. I've never even bothered to give in my name or number, but you know what? I do care about what happens in my town or my community. And boom, you click the link and then off you go and you start taking it right there or then. No pen, no paper, no stamps, none of that. It's a much easier, lower barrier to get respondent engagement. And I'm not saying everybody's going to respond, folks, but the bottom line is that, again, this is a difference when you're using technology to improve and have a better community survey and engagement. Let's look at this as another way. How easy is it for the respondent or your resident to complete the survey instrument, the statistical speak for the questionnaire? This is an example of some questions that are typically asked. This is from a survey that was done by the city of Pueblo regarding their police department. You know, mark up these numbers and documents and so forth, and figure out, you know, what you want to do, et cetera, et cetera. And this is just what I want to use as an example on the open-ended qualitative ability to capture the voice of your residents. You know, I mean, are there any areas of town that you do not feel safe? Where are those specific areas of towns you don't feel safe? So you stick that in there where you may not feel safe. Why do you not feel safe here? Okay, you got one sentence, one line to talk about what you want to do here. You know, and again, get out your pen. Are you really going to do there? I'm not even going to get into the data collection bias built in or error that you have to measure by key punching all of this in. That is, you know, just naturally a problem. Now, granted, understand this webinar is about improving engagement. It's about improving the experience. It's about using technology to get there. And this entire process does not exist when you're doing an MMS text survey. This is another example. City and County of Brookfield, please rate the quality of open space and trails, recreation programs, Meals on Wheels, the Paul Durda Recreation Center. Again, very typical questions for a community survey. You know what these look like, you know, local government professionals. But then again, at the bottom, what access barriers exist for the above amenities? I have no wheelchair or service here or there, or my dog. Like you have. This is all you get to fill in. So, you know, what does that look like for the experience or the barriers or the ease of completing the survey instrument on an MMS text survey? Well, once you click that text, boom, you're taking it on your phone. You can also take it on your electronic device. You can take it on your web, on your desktop. How would you rate the city of Glenwood Springs on the following quality of life aspects? And we start off, I'm sure you've all seen this. Most community surveys start this off. Overall community quality of life in Glenwood Springs. Excellent, good, fair, poor. Click, click, scroll, click. It's much easier. There's no pens involved. You're answering the questions right there in a nice manner. And people are familiar doing that on their phones. How are we going to get and capture all that open-ended? Please describe the top issues, priorities, or problems that you think the city of Glenwood Springs should address in the next 3 years. You can type it in, but you can also click that microphone button, which most people know, and you can just start talking away. The qualitative data that we receive from this data collection method is phenomenal. It's not limited, and it's great to mine it and really measure sentiment. It is just easy, and people understand how to use it, including seniors, by the way. And then another exercise that we do, we like to have residents rank budget priorities. You every day, your council, your staff have to make budget allocation decisions every single year. Well, let's make sure that your residents are aligned with what they think should be the spending priorities with what you're doing. Now, this can be done on paper, but in an electronic, technology-driven way, people can just click and drag and drop what they really want. And we're really specific here: roadway maintenance, resurfacing, and so forth, residential and commercial permitting, land development, The experience is easier, it's technology driven, and this is going to lead to more engagement, and it's a more pleasant experience for your resident. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is just the natural biases that are built in, or the challenges of resident engagement on a paper dominant or male dominant survey. And understand something, folks. I know, and I'm not trying to hoodwink you here. Most survey efforts, community surveys, will have a mail survey. They will have a link. They will also post it on, the city or county website. We go through the exact same exercise. We try to increase engagement and awareness before the survey is launched. But at the end of the day, this is just some of the unweighted data for some male dominant community surveys. And I'm not going to get into where this is from, but just renters versus owners. There's correlations there. Folks that rent their home tend to be of populations of color, lower income. They are more challenged to interview regardless of the data collection method. But this report that was generated from this community survey shows that, the unweighted data. Unweighted data is exactly everything we received before, at the end of the day of data collection. They had an 8-point higher people that were homeowners, which is going to be correlated to typically somebody who takes a mail survey. They're going to be white, they're going to be older, they're going to be wealthier, and they're more likely to own their home. So they can flood the zone, if you will. So you usually have to reduce the number of homeowners, and the number of folks that rent their home tend to be, like I said, lower income, populations of color, more transient. They're more difficult to measure. But what I really want to point out here on just this one report is the age difference. So this unweighted data of everybody that took this community survey, 15% of all respondents were between 18 to 34 years old. However, the population norm, or what we call, the truth, what is truly representative of that population, and we're usually getting that data from the census or the local demographer, it's 15 points low. So they had to weight up younger the younger respondents by 15 points here. Half of the voters were 55 and older, half of the respondents. But the truth is that population is only 28% of the adult population. So they had to drag it down by 30%. Now, I'm not saying that these deficits, and I'll get to a couple other examples, like here in Westminster. I am not claiming or saying MMS text survey data collection is going to reduce all these deficits so that there is no difference between your unweighted survey responses and how much we have to weight. We have to weight up too, just nowhere near as dramatically is how I would explain it. City of Westminster, unweighted data. The number of renters that participated in their community survey here in 2020, 15%. What's the truth of the matter? 35% of the households are actually renters. So 20-point deficit. Homeowners made up 85% of their responses, the unweighted responses, where in truth they should have been 65. So again, you have all those old white homeowner people dragging, flooding your survey, and they're overrepresentative. Hispanic versus non-Hispanic. Among their respondents, 10% were Hispanic, but the true Hispanic percentage of adult population in Westminster is closer to 18%. So they're about 8 points short. Now, understand something, we're probably going to come up also short as well, but just perhaps not by as much. But the bottom line is, if you're relying mostly on just sending mail, you don't really have a nimble way of perhaps giving Hispanic and Latino residents more than one way of participating in the survey other than getting into the field, doing it through your outreach coordinator and so forth. And those efforts can happen, but MMS text, we can just pour it in nonstop into those census tracts and neighborhoods that we know are more Hispanic dominant, if you will, or so forth. Again, their age deficit, only 10% of their respondents were 18 to 34 years old, where the truth of the matter is 34% of Westminster's population of the adult population is 18 to 34. Pretty big deficit there. So you got a lot of weighting going on. 6 out of 10 respondents were 55 and older, where in truth, 27% should be there. So again, you don't have these dramatic deficits in a text survey. Final example here, because this is kind of dramatic. City of Lakewood, homeowners made up 80% of their sample. They needed to be 60%. Renters were only 20%. They had to bring that up to 41%. Again, the non-Hispanic versus Hispanic numbers, again, about 10 points off. But really dramatic here too. 18 to 34-year-olds, only 13%, 18 to 34. They had to bring that up to 30%. But two-thirds of their voters were 55 and older, respondents These are big deficits that can be collapsed with an MMS text data collection method. Now, why is that? The real reason is that with MMS text survey, it's not just one and done. Like, okay, like we can decide using demographic information and geographic data that is not only just on our voter file and our residential file and Hispanic surname matching, but the bottom line is there's nothing wrong, and it's still well within budget. We can text or send QR codes or go after folks many times during the data collection phase, which is typically 2 to 3 weeks. A mail survey, you're kind of like, there's only so many pieces of mail you can send because mail's expensive, it's slow. It's like I said, people aren't engaging or communicating with each other through mail, as you can all understand, where with MMS texting, we can really flood the zone in inviting people, get their attention, gain their trust to try to collapse so that those unweighted subgroup deficits are not so dramatic. And then finally, our community survey respondent engagement. Like, what are we really talking about here? Here's just some of the examples. Our community surveys typically range from 75 questions, by the way, to over 125. We have a pretty long one going on right now in Glenwood, in Gypsum, and we're also about to tee one up over down in Castle Pines. Here's the kind of response rates we're looking at: 7,300% adult population, 846 interviews. Town of Wellington, 7,000 people, 700 interviews. City of Glenwood Springs, 6,600. We completed 861 interviews. City of Salida, we interviewed over a quarter of the adult population there. And understand, these are not 50-question surveys. These are 75 to 110 long. And it's like, are you really going to fill all this out? They do. And I would say, you know why? I feel the experience of taking it on an electronic device, using technology and inviting them the way we do, people want their voices heard. And just a lot more people feel that, hey, I'm glad or I'm happy with the direction of my community. And I feel that my voice was heard because you do cover a lot. Because this webinar is not talking about changing all kinds of questions and doing things. It's a communication tool. This is just a better community survey, as we refer to it, because when you use more technology in this engagement, you're really going to lead there. And again, please understand something too. I know many of you are very reluctant to leave mail overall. But I just, we have a lot of proof of concept from our community survey clients with it didn't take us 4 months to conduct the survey or mail everything out and do all of that. We had really good engagement while it was going on, 2 to 3 weeks, 1 month time period. And again, this webinar is really just to try to open up some eyes and just consider some better data collection methods than mail and so forth. So I'll put that up right now real quickly for some of you to see on what that is. And basically, as you can see in that handout, folks, there's a QR code there and so forth. Okay, one question. How long of a community survey has Magellan managed? Like I mentioned, the way community surveys are designed, as many of you know, you may have a section where it's like question 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because you're asking questions for a particular government service or project, whether it be public works, whether it be roads, whether it be housing or residential development. But we've pushed the envelope pretty good and still had a very strong engagement. And I really believe that the reason that happens is because people are taking the survey on an electronic device rather than having to circle bubbles and numbers and then write out their responses. It's easier. And not only that, if you had somebody try to fill out a 5 to 6 page paper survey versus having all of that on their phone or electronic device, that they will get through the electronic version very quickly. Does Magellan offer bilingual Spanish versions of the survey? Of course we do. We usually work with a company out of Boulder, Colorado called Clace. Marina there is a great partner of ours and does a great job of transcribing and converting into Spanish some very, very long community surveys. So we partner with her. but we also have had our local government clients have somebody on staff that they feel very confident in conducting or doing the translation. With that, I want to thank you all for participating, and thank you very much.